Hey folks, we are live SVT time. It is Tuesday. I know it's been quite a while, so apologies here for kind of being in the dark side a little bit. But man, it's good to be back. It's Tuesday, it's SVT time. I'm Dino Monoxilus. My fearless co-host is always here, Dom Liberati.
What's up?
Um, Episode 71. I
Crazy.
still keep on having to look at the screen, but it is episode 71. This has been a long time in the running just because of schedules and everything. But man, we are so happy to have Janek Gwizdala with us here today. Janek, man,
Good morning.
I know we had one scheduled a while back, and then things got busy and crazy, and
Yeah.
so we finally made this happen. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Oh man, it's good to see you. I know it's been a while since we've seen each other and got to hang out. And how's everything? You been okay? Been busy?
It's been an insane year. Yeah. Insane in the sense that like we were talking before we went live, with the kiddo involved, with like having an almost 3-year-old. She turns 3 in 2 weeks. So having that, and my wife. Some people are gonna know who know me. They know my wife's a great bass player as well. So 2 musicians in the family. Most musical families, it's like bad enough having one deadbeat dad who's gone. So since she was born, I've like dialed back the deadbeat dad road dog kind of situation and tried to limit that as much as possible. But then sometimes some things come up that you just can't say no to.
Yeah.
And not even at this point, financially speaking, it's just like musically speaking, you're like, oh man, this might be the last chance I get to do this.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting year balancing that emotionally with the kiddo and being like, okay, how do I explain it to her and like do things that she will be proud of eventually that I did, that I can share with her, rather than just being, it's a money grab. I'm going to go make a few grand and come back home and I don't really care. Like really trying to balance those two things. So a totally different take on life. 10 years ago, it would have been 300 days a year on the road.
Yeah.
Without a thought, almost.
Yeah.
You know, and just saying, maybe not 10 years, maybe a little longer than 10 years now, just saying yes, regardless of what the gig was.
Right.
Now it's like, not only is it super selective, it's extra hyper selective in terms of the times I say yes to leave the house, and it's not just a financial thing anymore either. So it's very interesting, and we can get into the weeds on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's been a diverse year. I've been playing in Steve Smith's Vital Information for a few years now. Actually, I started right before the pandemic hit, and then we had to shut it down for a couple of years. But now we've done a couple of records, we've done a bunch of tours, and this year was a little busier with that. Probably 3 weeks on the road in the US, and then almost 3 weeks on the road in China.
Oh wow.
And,
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit too as we get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of
It's
course,
such a different thing as well. Like you go on the East Coast and you're playing like Pennsylvania and Baltimore and like these places we all know and love and have played 1,000 times. And then you're like, I've literally got a boarding pass. I was like emptying my road luggage or something, and it's like Chongqing to Guangzhou boarding pass. Like what is this? Zhuhai to who knows where. I don't read simplified Chinese, so it's so different. Like, and we here on the Ampeg channel, like talk about gear. You know what I mean? Like you're showing up in rural China, and I got to say, like, big props to you guys for having coverage all over the world. Like that was, as we have talked about, was a massive part of the reason I came over to Ampeg. Was like you can really not guarantee, because nobody can guarantee rural China is going to have the exact thing you want, but at least I show up and the right badges on the amp,
Yeah.
And but that, as we know from playing all around the world, it's quite a lottery quite often.
Oh, sure.
So
Sure.
it's a very
What are
different
the crowds
experience.
like in rural China? What's like the biggest difference from East Coast or from just US crowds?
Well, there are some obvious ones, and even like with the East Coast compared to the rest of the world, you sort of have to compartmentalize that as well, because like you go and play in New York, and people are like, "All right, motherfucker, impress me."
Yeah.
That's what you're greeted with in the front row. You're like, "Oh man!" And normally if you have the experience, you can drag them out of that and get them into the gig and brighten people's faces. But there's definitely that like show me something I haven't seen before or heard,
Yeah.
you know? So there's that. This is totally different in Baltimore or wherever we play, like Blues Alley down in DC or something. And then in China, it's like, it's a whole ecosystem and way of life when it comes to music audiences in itself. And some of them are very proper, and they don't make any noise, and it's almost like they're being watched, which they are 100%. You know, it's like you know, many tours I've done in China, I notice I am being watched on a regular basis. So there's the audience, and then you look in the audience like, well, who's actually the audience, and who's the government officials checking that we don't say anything wrong?
You mean being watched?
Watched. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay,
We're talking about a communist country here.
Wow,
you know? It's like going to Cuba, or I've never been to North Korea, or going to Russia in a lot of senses. You know, even though technically it's not anymore. So yeah, it can get a little crazy. And you sometimes, like in the rural places you go, and they haven't seen this before, and they're like, whoa. So there is like a amazing for us, because they're really appreciative of you going there. You know, maybe not so much. We played 2 nights at the Blue Note in Beijing, for instance. It's a big city. It's like dignitaries and rich people buying tickets, and they're not like the New York, like, yo, motherfucker, show me some shit. But they're also like, well, I just have lots of money, and I came out tonight because it's the Blue Note, not because it's you guys.
Yeah.
You know, so it's amazing, and like that's one of the things that keeps me, and I guess a lot of us, on our toes when we tour, is how to navigate that, you know, and at the same time, how not to get distracted and get lured into doing something that is not you.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy. Like, you could find the thing that works and then just do that every night.
Yeah. But you bring up
really
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean
go
to.
ahead.
You brought up a really, really good point too, because, you know, as musicians or music goers that are sitting in the audience that have that impress me type of attitude, and the musician that's on stage that, okay, what am I going to do to impress this guy or this girl? I find myself doing it too. Like, I'll go into as a spectator and be like,
yeah.
But on both sides of that equation, you got to let it go and just be like, you know what? I'm here to have a good time. Yeah. I'm here to see some great music. I'm here to play some great music. You got to strip down that curtain.
Absolutely.
And just like, you're here to see me. I'm here to play for you. Let's just have a good time. If I play something wrong, who cares? If I play something right,
that's great, and that's very idyllic, but it's amazing to me the amount of musicians who don't take that approach, and they go, oh crap, they start getting anxiety kicks in, and like, oh, I have to impress them, so I have to do those 5 things that really work. I'm going to go to the slap solo or the tapping thing, or, you know, the impressive thing. It's very strange, and you know, we all know who those people are, because it's very apparent, because they do the same thing every single night when they play. And that's always, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot recently, and really actively trying to be that thing of, I don't want to say it's not caring, because I care greatly, but it's certain elements of the process that I have absolutely no interest in engaging in, like that thought process, like the impress me kind of thing.
Yeah.
And with the amount of recording I'm doing, and the amount of writing and future projects I have planned, even just for the next 6 months, I'm fully aware that I'm making music that won't be listened to until long after I'm gone.
Yep.
I'm not making records to impress people, or for, you know, streams on Spotify or views on YouTube. I'm just making it for me, you know. It's like something, I forget who said it. I wish I could give the person credit. It was someone great. It was someone I really admire, but they were like, you do not play for your audience in the recording studio. You play for yourself. And that gives you the most honest performance at the end of the day, because you're not thinking ahead to, oh, what would this person that I think listens to my music like? There's none of that external influence. So on a lot of levels, I'm trying to think about that. It sounds so dickish, like I just play for myself. But it's the only way I can be honest, because I really like the way I play.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't do it otherwise.
Also, if you're not enjoying, like, wholesomely every fiber of your being what you're playing, what's the point? How's that going to translate?
Yeah. There's almost, I think one of the quotes that, and I think this came from Victor Wooten at one point, and he said something similar. He's like, it's not that I go on stage not caring, because I care, but I'm secure in what I do, and I know what I do.
Yeah.
And, there's a little bit of ego involved. We all have to have some sort of an ego in knowing this is me, this is what I do, whether you like it or not. I'm sorry, but yeah, you kind of have to go on there not caring to the point where it makes you nervous and it impedes your performance. You just gotta let it flow, and you got to make music for yourself.
Right.
Man.
So we dived way off the deep end.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So what kind of strings do you use? No. We're not even.
Already,
No,
we have a comment down here. I thought we were talking about amps. See that's the expectation thing.
Yeah.
And I'd love to address Will Stryker. This is nothing against Will Stryker, but this is a general thing in the space of the internet and of things like this that we're doing. There's such an expectation. And I see so many comments of, let's relate it to what we just talked about. I put out a record and it's not what someone was expecting. And they get mad about that and they comment about it. It's like, man, where are all the bass solos? I'm like, well, what about these other 8 people I hired in the band who are insanely great soloists that played amazing music all over the record? How about appreciating that and not having a preconceived notion about what you think it should be? And then you're going to enjoy it so much more. Like if you come to this expecting us to talk about amps and you totally ignore the last 10 minutes of discussion, you've really you've lost a great moment there for yourself.
Yeah.
And if it's not a great moment for you, then there are 1,000 other YouTube channels that are live right now. You could go hang out with that. You know? But it's that expectation thing I've never understood. I guess it was really private before we had the internet. You know? And now, see, that people say things on the internet that they would never say to you in person, right? Like they'd never even come up to you after a gig if you didn't play their favorite song, or you'd never go up to Marcus Miller and say, "Marcus, man, what's up with this bullshit? Blah 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 blah." I wanted to hear the other blah 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 from 10 years ago. Nobody would have even the balls to say that.
Yeah.
But you have an anonymous screen name and baff, you can say whatever you like online. So it's amazing. Again, nothing against Will Stryker. No Will Stryker, but it's an amazing moment to bring that up. And of course, we can absolutely talk about amps.
Oh, yeah.
Will, if you have a question about amps, I'm so happy to answer it right now. But just saying I thought we were talking about amps, maybe it's a tongue-in-cheek also. Who knows? That's the other thing. There's no nuance on the internet, so you don't really know. It's even like when you text someone. It could be, "Hey, what's up?" Or it could be, "Hey, what's up?" You just don't know. So it's kind of a crazy space to be in with something that's so subjective as music.
And and of course, and again, we'll, like Janek said, we will talk about amps. And if you have any questions, by all means, but it brings me back to, I remember going to a drum clinic years ago when I was a young kid, and the guy that, I won't say who the clinic was, but he was giving the clinic. He says, "How many of y'all here are drummers?" And everybody raised their hands. And there were a couple of guys that didn't raise their hands. And he points to me, he says, "You didn't raise your hand." I says, "I'm not a drummer, I'm a bass player." And he looked me straight in the eyes. He goes, "What the hell are you doing here then?" Like, he said it kiddingly, but I was like, I'm here to learn something. Like, my expectations were not to learn about bass that night. My expectations were to learn about drums. So, but
the day I got inspired to play the bass, here we go. See, this is what I was saying to you before, Dino, before we went live. It's a perfect way to bring this up. The literal moment I got inspired to play bass for the rest of my life was because I wanted to be a drummer. And my buddy was like, "Dude, you got to come to this gig and check out this bass player. He is it. That's where it's at. It's the greatest thing I've ever heard." And I was like, "Well, I don't care about the bass. Like, who's the drummer?" The drummer happened to be amazing as well. So that's what got me to the gig. And 30 seconds in, I decided this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And perfect example. You're going for one thing and you find out, oh shit, here's the next 50 plus years of hard work that I had no idea was coming.
Yeah.
And I've loved every minute of it. So it's...
Can I ask
the bass
who
player,
that,
by
who
the
that,
way, was Lawrence Cottle.
Thank you.
Great studio musician, jazz musician, arranger, composer in the UK. Was massive on the scene in the 90s, or 80s and 90s, specifically 90s when I got into it, and was kind enough to take me to shows in the studio and hang out. And never gave me a lesson. Refused to teach me a single thing. I say, "What scale on this?" He said, No. You use your ears, and that's it. I'm not teaching you anything. You can hang out with me. We can play together. You can come to every gig. You can record it on a little tape player.
You still have the
record it
tape
on a
player.
little tape player.
Yes,
Actually, that
Okay.
one from 27 years ago was way bigger than this. This is modern. Doggies.
Bronco. That's wild.
Yeah, but that was it. Like no lessons, no bullshit. You just got to listen. You have to listen and use your ears. Greatest lesson anyone ever gave me.
That's like the Mr. Miyagi approach. Like, never going to give you a karate lesson, but you're going to learn how to wax the car. You know?
Luckily, he didn't make me clean his car, but because I wasn't old enough to have a license when I met him, he drove me to a lot of gigs. And the second I had a license, I became his driver for about a year.
No. Now, was this was growing up in London?
Yeah, this was in London.
Cool.
You know, he was huge on the studio scene there. He was working with Clapton and Seal and like just everyone. He played on Headless Cross, the Black Sabbath record.
Wow.
And they were doing that on the south coast of England for the week, heavy metal all day. And at night, he was with his own fusion band at Ronnie Scott's every night, you know, just like two opposite ends of the spectrum. Yeah, just an incredible all-round musician, an amazing arranger, and writes library music and for motion picture and commercials and stuff like that.
So I got to ask, what do you think he saw in you to take you under his wing?
You know, I've all the years I've known him, I've never asked him, and I actually have to spend a night in London next week, and we are trying to figure out having dinner together. It might be finally time to ask him. I don't think I've ever had the balls to ask him. Maybe I don't want to know either.
Well, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It was such an incredible time, and I have a very specific memory associated with it that was zero bullshit.
Yeah.
You know. And maybe if I ask him, he tells me some things. Maybe it's an ego thing. Maybe if I ask him, he tells me some things I don't want to hear. He's like, "Well, you were kind of a little prick, but I put up with that bullshit because maybe you had some talent, or I don't know,
some things are better left unsaid, as they say.
It could be. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't really care about my feelings enough to not ask him. So I will ask him at some point. I'd love to have him on my podcast and really get into depth. We've never done that before. The distance is a pain in the ass. I spend so little time in London anymore. You know.
Yeah.
It'll be literally a day this entire year.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Now, have you always been in LA or did you started in New York, right?
No, I went to Boston. I went to Berkeley.
Okay.
I was a really bad student. I went to Berkeley for the visa. You know, I met Flora Purim and Aieto Moreira in London. The only ever kind of day gig I ever had was working as an assistant sound engineer at Ronnie Scott's in London when I was a kid.
Okay.
And that's a very glorified name for what it was I was actually doing. I never did any sound, but I did plug in cables and understand what mics go where and stuff. You know, a lackey on, for sound checks and whatnot.
Yeah.
But that allowed me to meet every single American visiting band that came through Ronnie's. I mean, the biggest of the big, all of my heroes in the space of 6 months, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
And towards the end of that, what actually made me quit that job was Aieto Moreira and Flora Purim, and they played 4 weeks there. This was back in the days when you could play weeks at a club, not just a few days. We would set up Monday, sound check, and you play Monday through Saturday, Sunday off. And they did that for 4 weeks. So we set them up on Monday. I was like, holy shit, this is the guys from the band Return to Forever that my dad was always talking about. Holy crap, this is like the greatest thing I've ever heard. And I'm just like, face melting in the sound check. And so I went back Monday night, listened to both sets. Tuesday night, listened to both sets, learned all of the music. Wednesday night, went back and knocked on the dressing room door, and Flora opens it and she's like, "Oh yeah, Janek, from the sound check. What do you want?" I was like, I had my bass on the show. I said, "I want to play with your band." And she was like, "Oh shit, well." And then she had a great get out of jail free card there. She said, "Well, technically it's my husband's band, and maybe you better speak to him." And she extracted herself, really diplomatic, amazing. We laughed about it afterwards. And then he comes to the door like big bear of a man. Says, "Oh, you're okay, Janek, what do you want?" I said, "I want to play with your band." And he's like, little kid, yeah, right. And and then he saw I was serious. I wasn't going anywhere. I said, "No, I'm serious. I want to sit in with your band tonight. This is the greatest music I've ever heard. I love you guys." And he said, "Well," and then he had a diplomatic answer as well. He said, "Well, we have rehearsals and we have all this music that it's very arranged, and it would be, you wouldn't know it." I said, "Well," and this is probably the cockiest thing I've ever said. I said, "Well, are you going to play anything different from the first 2 nights, first 4 sets?" And he was like, Well, no, that's pretty much it. And I said, well, then I know every tune and every arrangement that you've played so far.
Wow.
And he's trying to get rid of me, I know. So he's like, oh, Christ. All right, so what's the ending? There's a song called Ombro, which is Brazilian for shoulder. And he's like, what's the ending on Ombro? I said, well, Monday, Tuesday, it's 3 times piano solo and then the cue, and then you play the line and it ends on the end of 4. But the first set on Tuesday, piano player missed the cue. So you actually played it 4 times and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, then he had no choice. You know, I kind of gave him no choice. Like, all right, for fuck's sake. Come back on the end of the second set, like the least dangerous part of the night, and play a tune with us. And we didn't even play that tune. We played something else. And after I came off the stage, she said, hey, you want to play the rest of the 4 weeks with us?
Wow.
And we play with 2 basses.
Wow.
You know, so it was crazy. And then every night, you know, they rented apartments for the band, a huge band, and they rented apartments next to Hyde Park in London. And I would go back to the apartment with her and hang out until 4 o'clock in the morning talking. And she would tell me stories of being in Jaco Pastoris's band and being with Chick Corea and hanging out with Miles and all this stuff. And I was just like, holy shit. I already knew this was what I wanted to do. But when I had direct connection to the source material, it's changed everything. You know, Airto's sitting there telling me about playing with Miles at the Isle of Wight and with Jimi Hendrix. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Wow.
And then she was like, yeah, you should move to America. Just bam, like that. And that was in like a February of, February of 98. And I moved in, I got an audition for Berkeley. My grandmother gave me the money for the train ticket to go to Paris to take the audition on the Eurostar, and I got a scholarship. And between February 98, I started Berkeley in September 98.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dude,
and that was basically when I moved to the States.
Eric took the words out of my mouth. He said, damn, that's ballsy, and I love it. I mean, but you did your homework. Like, that's almost unheard of.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's not unheard of if you love something. There just aren't that many people that love something that much to be that crazy about it.
Yeah.
And that's not some ego statement on my part. That's just fact. There aren't 5,000 John Patitucci's. There's fucking one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the people aren't falling over themselves. There aren't 20 Usain Bolts finishing within a thousandth of a second of each other. There's one guy 2 meters at the finish line in front of everyone else breaking world records. I'm not saying I'm on that level at all, but the willpower and the motivation and the pure love for what I do is what is behind that. And I think that's the thing that's kind of rare.
Yeah.
You know? And I encourage it so much. Obviously, I mainly get to talk to people who are musicians. And sadly, almost every single one of them is not going to have that.
Yeah.
It's like the cello student that goes to the Yo-Yo Ma masterclass at Juilliard, and there's 50 cellists in the room, and Yo-Yo Ma asks, what do you want to do? And everyone says, well, I want to play in an orchestra. He said, well, there's 50 of you. I give one of you a 1 in 50 chance of getting a gig in an orchestra that's any good. Like, these are the odds we're talking about, you know?
Yeah.
So I really encourage people to have the passion for it and to find that. I also say, hey, guess what? It might not be music, you know?
Yeah.
And if music is a thing you love, there are other ways to do it and have fun doing it. But comparing yourself to me or people you love in that level, that might not be it, you know? So I try and get people to be as honest as they can as soon as possible in the process.
Yeah.
You know, that's like probably the only thing and the best thing I can do as a teacher, because after that, it's just about inspiring them to continue doing it, you know, and to have the willpower and to get out of bed every morning.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's not work if you absolutely love what you're doing.
Right. Hey, somebody's put in the comments here, the Gun Tavern. Holy shit. This person knows the pub in London that I saw Lawrence Cottle at. That is absolutely right. So you've heard me tell this story before, obviously. Unless you're from Croydon in South London, that would be crazy.
Wow.
And your picture would, if that's a recent photograph, would say that you're not as old as me. So you definitely weren't there at the time.
Yeah.
But that's funny.
That is funny. He does have another question here. If we can talk about gear for a second.
That's a good one, actually. Yeah, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Hey, Janek, what made you switch from to 410s from a single 12? It's very interesting. I wish I had multiple cameras because I go boof and give you an overhead of the pedal board. I might pick it up and show you in a minute. But so much of my music became not just about the bass. and I found I was playing all these a much wider register rather than just sitting B15 land or single 12 land. Almost, I'm a synth player to a certain extent. So the 10s started to make way more sense in terms of the punch. And it was actually on a Steve Smith Vital Information tour where what we were talking about at the beginning of the stream happened, and you don't get the gear you want every single time. And I ended up with the brand I was playing previously, who shall remain nameless, with their head, but with a 410, with an Ampeg 410. And every night I look around, it's like, holy shit, what have I been missing? Like, I think I started playing 12s way less intensively with pedals, and then got way more into pedals and just never thought to update the situation in the cabinet, you know. And now, so I have the two.
That's a 210.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
My brain is so melted. Yeah, so I have the 210 and the V3 here in the studio. There's a video on my channel if you want to go super in depth into that. I made, I think it's like, what do I call it? The best practice amp, whatever. It's on my channel.
Yeah.
But you know, great 12s, play that through 12s, no problem. But then get into some kind of that's a lot of range in the low end.
Yeah.
Plus, I still want to be able to turn all of that off and hit this bad boy. That is not going to translate on a YouTube stream, but I've got a subharmonic on there, and in the room, my arse is moving with a 2x10 that is not even turned up that loud. So hopefully that answers your question about the switch from 10s, from 12s to 10s. I want to say there's a massive cabinet from Ampeg.
Oh,
that is out or not out, or is
it is out.
It is. Thank you. Sorry.
Negative Hertz just bought one.
That thing is very interesting to me as well, because that's 8s, right?
Yeah.
But it's a whole stack of them.
Right.
So, you know, if I was having like a much bigger setup on a slightly louder stage, doing some sounds that you just heard, I might consider that, especially if we were driving and, you know, we weren't flying and it wasn't tough to source that in every different city.
Yeah.
Also, I'm working on a stereo rig, which may be a little bit much to take. Sorry, Don, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, Negative Hertz, thanks for picking up a VB88. Thanks for spreading the good word.
Oh, there you go.
I still haven't gotten mine yet, Tom.
So I'm thinking about doing a stereo rig with a pair of DIs on the board, going out into different cabinets, and maybe that would be two 10s, because they're really just for monitoring. Let's see how that works. Two 410s might be really massive.
Or two 8x8s.
Two 8x8s. Well, yeah. When I can fill Madison Square Garden, I'll let you know. guys will be there front row. And we got more comments here as well.
Oh yeah.
Sanchez, can't wait to see you again at Yoshi's. Oh yeah, awesome. Going to be up at Yoshi's in the Bay Area with Stern and Dennis Chambers later this year.
Can people find your tour dates and all your dates on your website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything's always on the website.
All right. Yeah. And
is that an Autobit? Yeah, that thing that was making all the weird glitching sounds is an Autobit Junior from Meris. Very weird, funky pedal. That also needs kind of Frankensteining, because I don't know who designs a pedal with a time-based effect that doesn't have a mix knob on it. Like, are you kidding me? So I have to have a parallel loop that it goes through to switch it on or not. It's such a drag. Again, I wish I could just... hang on. I can. I'll hold up the pedal board here.
Anybody can lift the VB88 with a single hand. This comment's amazing.
Yeah, right.
The props. It's probably lighter than that pedal board. Look at that. Oh, the white stuff.
If people were talking about gear, we can get into it right now. I just finished building this yesterday. I'm
Nice.
also new to the HX1. I think we should talk about that for bass players. I think that's
Sure.
insanely underrated.
Yeah.
I've watched, because I just got one, I've watched so many videos about it, and everyone is talking about it completely backwards. So I cannot wait to make a video about that. And of course, especially for bass players as well, but it's a great addition to the board. This is a little parallel looper pedal I was talking about. So that gives me essentially a blend knob for the Auto Bit Junior.
Okay.
Vintage bass octave, Ephemeron, which is a FM synth pedal. It's weird doing this without being able to
Yeah,
see it.
right. Upside
that's
down.
the Mantic. That's the subharmonic I was talking about.
Okay.
And the Frantabit is. I'll play some of these after we go through them. If you
Sure.
want. That's the Frantabit. That's a kind of a bit crusher, sample rate reducer, and ring mod. Some of these are super unobtainium. Like, don't even bother going to reverb because your pockets just aren't deep enough. I'm lucky to have been on the beta testing team with Iron Ether for the beginning. It's the only way I could ever afford them. They go for the same prices. The dude only makes a few every year, so it's one of those. HX Stomp, obviously. I have a little add-on which gives me foot switch 4 and 5.
Yep.
Just amazing. I love the XL, but obviously the real estate.
Yeah.
Can't do it on a small travel board like this. Like I said, the HX1 is my reverb and sort of tape degrading thing at the end, the Chase Bliss Dark World. And then some of the brains of it. all the powers underneath. And then I have JHS Color Box, which is basically a 1073 or Neve kind of channel strip EQ.
Okay.
Beautiful. I have a TRS that comes out for an expression pedal on the Frantabit, and then a straight output in the back to the volume pedal.
And you travel with that board.
So this is the travel board. Yeah.
Okay.
The travel board. It's not that light, I gotta say. I'm struggling with it.
VB88 on the baritone guitar. Nice.
Sorry?
Negative Hertz said he or she has been using a VB88 on a baritone guitar.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I mean, so many guitar players, jazz guitar players I know in New York use little bass amps.
Yeah.
You know, this is an awesome sound for a hollow body for a jazz box. Yeah.
I played at Sport and the band before me was a dude on telly and a drummer, and the telly was going through 2 810 stacks. It sounded massive. It's awesome.
What about what's the guy's name in Royal Blood? Mike.
Yeah. Mike. Yeah.
Mike Kerr.
Yeah, Kerr.
You had it. Yeah, Mike Kerr. Yeah. And he uses all kinds of stuff like split up and massive rigs, and it's like a hybrid bass guitar, bass/guitar thing. Yeah. Very cool.
That's the Stones. When the SVTs were first introduced, the Stones all toured with SVTs. So,
dude, I remember our friend Juan Alderete talking about being on tour with the Mars Volta back in the day and getting on the plane with an 810, flying to Australia.
Way.
You know, like 25 years ago or something, but still, like when that was still a thing, man. Holy shit.
I could picture one doing that too.
Lucky if I can get a compression pedal in my hand luggage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hey, speaking of that, if you don't mind, real quick, I know, and again, on your channel, I know you address this about traveling with your bass versus you check your basses. And I know
100% of the time.
We've had this conversation because I check mine all the time too. I hate carrying a bass through the airport, but you don't have any issues checking your basses.
No, I don't. I just don't care.
Knock on wood.
You know, it's a nice bass and everything, but it's a piece of wood at the end of the day. And bass is the dumbest instrument of all the instruments. It really is. It's the one instrument that you can show up in like Bishkek or some random place in Turkmenistan and be like, hey, anyone got the P bass? Five guys come forward and say, have my P bass, you know, like, and you're good, you know. See, the one thing, I'm gonna have to unplug my in-ears, but I feel like people should see this. Give me 1 second, see if I can find it.
We got Paul Trainer saying hi. We couldn't do an SVT time without you.
Yeah, right. Hi, Paul. Thank you for joining. Good evening. Man, there's so much information that.
Let me plug back in because I don't hear anything.
Yep.
It's a disaster here right now.
If it's
still,
what studio is not a disaster?
Well, we just moved house, so this is a totally new place. So everything I just showed you in the pedal board goes in the Pelican like carry on.
Okay.
So whereas I don't give a shit about the bass and I'll check it and just let it go, if I have a tight connection, if I think, it's only a 45-minute turnaround at Munich airport and I'm going to Prague or some place that I know I can't get pedals, this goes as a carry-on. It's that simple. And the whole thing is so sturdy and the whole thing fits inside. It's got one of those organizer lids, so I've got like spare cables and AirTag and all that kind of stuff. And now, like with AirTags, you just know where your shit is.
Yeah.
You keep the batteries up to date. Your shit is basically never getting lost. I hate it when people say, "Oh, my bass got lost." No, it didn't. It got delayed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you have an AirTag, you know exactly where it is. You know exactly when you're getting it back. Like shit getting lost is such a 2003 thing.
Yeah.
I know, it really is. It's bullshit.
I need to invest in AirTags because that's, like you say, the last overseas trip I did, coming back from Budapest, not Budapest, from Romania, from Bucharest.
Bucharest, yeah.
And I mean, the bass didn't show up in Logan, but I
got
knew
one in my wallet. It's
Right.
where my passports are. My travel wallet. There's one in there. There's one in my bass. There's one in the pedals. There's one in my luggage.
And you
There's
can
one in my-
locate those anywhere around the globe.
Right in the phone. Which can be really annoying because we were on tour back into 2022. We stopped in Rotterdam train station making a connection to some fucking place, I don't know, and stopped to get some food. And the guy I was touring with, this saxophone player Bob Reynolds, turned his back on his luggage for 2 seconds in a kebab place in the train station. Bam, they stole it. Laptop, $3,000 in cash, all the music for the gig, just a ton of stuff, like irreplaceable stuff. But it all had AirTags in it, and we could see where they were going, and we could see when they found the AirTags. We could see where they tossed them on the tracks. It was, so it can be a drag in that sense, but in other senses, you can get your stuff back and you can find it with airlines at least.
Yeah.
And when you go to the lost luggage department of an airline and they're giving you some bullshit about, it's 5 days, 10 days. I'm like, no, it's right here.
Yeah.
Phone that place and tell them where it is and get it to me.
Yep. AirTags.
The road,
Yeah.
Have you ever landed for a gig and the pedal boards, for whatever reason, you carrying it on, didn't show up and you had to improvise last minute? Because that's a lot of, not obviously not that you can't play without that, but that's a lot of your sound in terms of the you're putting on.
I guess I've been lucky in the sense that hasn't happened to me. And also, I don't think I've been as reliant on my pedals for my own music for that long. We're only talking about maybe 5 or 6 years that it's really ramped up in that sense. That I've become the gear guy. I always used to be the guy who was like, I don't know the first fucking thing about anything. I tell me pickups, humbuckers, single coil, dual. I don't have no idea what any of that shit means. Now, I don't think you can really see, but there's like 300 pedals in there. Totally insane. They're all back there. I have a bathroom in this studio ensuite. This is just storage, floor to ceiling pedals. This is ridiculous.
Pedals.
Drawers where there should be soap and shampoo, pedals, expression pedal volume, So it hasn't been that long. I have actually, like Henrik Linder, for instance, from Dirty Loops. I remember super vividly, came to play at the Troubadour. It must have been early on because they play way bigger places now, but like maybe 2014. He's like, "Hey, Janek, lost all my pedals." I was like, okay. I said, what do you need? And he gave me a list, and I just went on my shelves and built him a pedal board and brought it to the gig. So it's hard to do that outside of like LA or New York or London or Paris. You really have to know someone who has some shit. I got to say though, like when you have, like I have enough presets in the HX Stomp, for instance, and I carry them backed up on my laptop.
Yeah.
So as long as I don't lose my laptop as well, I can go to any music store, get a Stomp, load my presets, and I can really, it's not going to be dry.
Right.
I'm not facing a completely vibeless gig as a result. So there is something to be said for technology in that sense as well.
Sure.
I guess to a certain extent, like the kind of the IRs or like the cab sim and stuff you have in the amps is that as well to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
When you're trying to get a certain sound and maybe you don't have the right gear, you can sort of start to fake it or get towards where you want it. So I'm a big fan of technology.
Yeah.
Definitely,
Yeah.
it helps in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But you use it to your advantage. You don't use it as a crutch.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the difference, I think.
And I did a
That's-
tour in 2017 called the Last Minute World Tour, and I booked it was like 81 or 82 shows all around the world, completely solo. So that Pelican case with a ton of pedals and my bass off around the world, everywhere. And for part of it, I did this thing for the fans, like bring a pedal. Like I'll take one random pedal off an audience member and do something with it live.
Oh, that's cool.
Like just put it in
Wow.
my signal chain somewhere, and they bought some weird stuff. Like luckily that fart pedal wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
Nobody did that one. And nobody did the Michi. What is that one? The Japanese one that makes all the weird vocoder sounds. Anyway, but there were some strange ones and had a lot of fun. So I'm all about, even with the bass, if the bass does get delayed, I kind of love being in like Madrid and playing somebody's old telly bass from the 60s.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
shit, whole different vibe to the gig,
Sure.
Even
Sure.
I have a friend, Adrian Bartolomolina, great bass player in Madrid. That happened in the pandemic tour, actually, like the February, March 2020 tour I was on. And the bass got delayed. And I said, hey, Adrian, can I borrow that P bass, man? And he was coming to the gig anyway. And my bass ended up showing up in time for the gig after all. And I still played the P bass. It's like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's really nice to have a change.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And of course you approach it differently. It gives you a different voice, basically,
Yeah, like I have a bunch of basses back here. They're not for show, I
Yeah.
actually like playing them and practicing on them. And like,
Yeah.
so old Goya Panther and some P basses and this
Man.
RKM that I've been playing with, which is a double reverse P. I love that sound. So, yeah,
I got to ask you, how many hours a day is the bass in your hands?
not enough, not nearly enough.
On average?
I can't tell you because it just right now it changes so much with the
Yeah.
schedule and with my daughter, and I'm up
Yeah.
at 7:30 in the morning. I'm getting her ready and breakfast. I'm getting her lunch and do that run and then come home, and who knows what I've got going on. I'm in the
Yeah.
middle of, I think I counted 15 projects today,
Oh, wow.
like of various types. Like it's the 20th anniversary of my first record, Mystery to Me. So we're doing a remix remaster for vinyl.
Oh.
For November, I have a new book coming out that
Yep.
should be finished this week. I mean, it's just like, I have 5 records planned for next year that I'm writing for. One of them is in Bulgaria with a folk choir. One is with a radio choir. So I'm writing choir music and big,
Wow.
wide voicing and stuff. It's totally insane. So I can't tell you how much. Sometimes it's like 4 hours. Sometimes it's 10 minutes. But
Yeah.
the most important thing is that it's consistent.
Yeah.
It's every day it's something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's 2 weeks with 10 minutes a day. And it's still way better than 5 hours on Friday and nothing until Wednesday.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm like, I put out this video the other day. I can't really show you because it's on my computer monitor, but I'm practicing something very small for a very set amount of time.
Yep. And I will say, for anybody that's watching that doesn't know Janek's YouTube channel, there is it's a wealth of information from gear to lessons to
There's a lot of
can't s-
stuff. It's not
Yeah.
for everyone, but so I'm like for the last 10 days. Oh no, well, let's say. That's it. Those are the only 4 notes I'm
Just
playing
that.
every day. Just that. And if I have an hour, I'll do it for an hour. If I have 10 minutes, I'm just doing it. Probably quite localized. If I have an hour, I'm mixing up minor thirds and major thirds. And if I have much longer, maybe I'm expanding it to include an augmented note. But basically, I've been working a lot on the Slonimsky thesaurus of
Oh, yeah.
scales and melodic shapes. And what I do is I take a screenshot of the PDF of that one set of 4 notes, and that's my screensaver on every device.
Oh, nice.
I have another
Oh,
desktop here, a
wow.
laptop, my big desktop here that I edit on. So every time I open my phone or anything, iPad, boom, oh shit, right, I'm working on that right now.
That's cool.
You
what
know?
a great idea.
So I never get sidetracked. I never forget what it is I'm working on. And every 10 days, I switch out the idea. And 10 days is, at least if I can get at least 10 minutes a day, 10 days is enough time for me to sink that into my playing to where it will never leave.
Yeah.
And I started the year. I was working on that in February. It's still completely under my fingers. I'm not even warmed up today, and
Yeah.
it's there. Like I don't even have to think about it. So
That's a
That's kind of-
fantastic idea.
Yeah.
that's
I
kind
love
of
that.
how I'm doing it now. You know, I don't have time to transcribe complete songs or complete solos
Right.
and learn 20 minutes of music and like I did when I was 19. So
Yeah.
I have to compartmentalize it or just restrict it into smaller chunks.
Yep. 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 No, that's and you said the right word there too. Compartmentalize everything. You know, everybody's
make
got
it
different
simple.
schedules.
Yeah,
Yeah.
make it simple and be try and be consistent with it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just having the instrument in your hands. You know, I mean, we all see it. You know, I don't know.
I also make a lot of use of the rest of the day. Like, literally, there's not a waking second of the day where I don't have headphones in my pocket.
Yeah.
Not a second. Because when
Yeah.
I have 3 minutes, when I'm waiting for my daughter, or I'm waiting for this, that, headphones go in, and I have 20 playlists that I can attack and listen to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm working on a solo classical. Oh, man. This shit. I'm working on a solo classical music, classical record of like all Brahms and Chopin. That is so delicate. Fucked up there. Yeah, it's so delicate. You have to listen to that thousands of times, not 20 or 30, thousands of times. And you
Yeah.
have to listen to Horowitz playing it and Lang Lang and all of these, you know, different. You've got to get it from so many different places. The classical music world is a world of like, don't have a family, don't have a life, don't have friends.
Yeah.
That world is where it's every day 6, 7, 8 hours,
Yeah.
no excuse, 0 days off every year, 0. And when I started thinking about that, I've played classical music my entire life. I was a classical guitar player before I was an electric bassist. I kind of come from that world, for want of a better phrase, come from that upbringing, shall we say, musically speaking. And as soon as I dived back into that and started thinking about Brahms and Mahler and Schubert and Chopin and Liszt and all of these people, Rachmaninoff, I was like, oh, right, you cannot fake this.
Yeah.
Like, there's no room for everyone hears every space, especially when you take a piece like that, like some of the waltzes, there's so much space. Chopin preludes, it's 90% space in a lot of them. Yeah, it's such a discipline and such a way to push yourself without having to get into some ferociously technical thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point being, long story long, making so much use of the rest of the time in the day where I can't have the instrument in my hands.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when I am touring, it's in a van or it's on a plane, and it's like, we went to China, it's a 14-hour flight. You better believe that besides sleeping, I was working, practicing that
Sure.
whole time, you know, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not for everyone. But I said it before, you know, like that level of shit is not for everyone. I totally get it. And I also totally get the question all the time, like, hey, what should I practice? How should I practice?
Yeah.
What's the process? And when I tell people, they're like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
really? I'm like, yes.
Yeah. I mean, you can have a bass or a guitar in your hands 24 hours a day, but if you're not,
Yeah, if the intent isn't there, you're screwed. You know,
right,
like,
right. You know, like they say, you know, Jocko used to carry his bass everywhere he went without a case. Eddie Van Halen, same thing. You know,
yeah,
wherever
Jacko
Eddie
used
was,
to
he
lose
always
his bass all the time as well.
Yeah. Well, that's true too.
Fall
but-
asleep and leave it on the basketball court, like.
Man.
Well, you said you're finishing up a book. I was going to say, like, what inspires you to push something into a book, like outside of just like, oh, that's a cool thought, or you know, because you have what 21 books.
He's got 21 books.
21, yeah. This is going to be
Amazing.
22 that's coming out right now. It's crazy.
Wow.
Well, look, like as much as I answered your question about the amount of time I spend with the bass not really being possible to estimate now, there were, 2 decades where there was absolutely that classical mentality of if I didn't do 4 hours a day, I felt like I was a piece of shit. That's not healthy mentally to think that about yourself. But that was my reality for a long time, and it led to being able to spend a lot of time with the instrument. And having to stay fresh, you know, like I didn't want to practice the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I would always have different technical hurdles that I would have to produce solutions for. So all of my books are basically solutions for things that I, you know, couldn't do.
Gotcha.
So, and then of course, like I'm literally on my desk here is the 251 book. So it's like more jazz vocabulary specific because, hey, that's a big part of my vocabulary.
Yeah.
So when I could put together something that really focused in on a certain element of jazz and a very common chord progression, okay, that makes sense for a book. And some of them I pour my heart and soul into and they sell 5 copies and die of death. And others are like, oh, well, this would be a cool idea. And they become like the best-selling one I've ever had. And you're like, oh, shit, wow. So it's not only a learning experience on what I put in there and the process, but it's a learning experience on like, oh, what do people, what do they gravitate towards? What do they want? What do they need? What are they hungry for in their own practice, in their own playing? So it's a massive learning process. It's like giving a lesson for me. When I give someone a lesson one-on-one, not that it really ever happens anymore, but when it does, I always learn something.
Oh,
They always ask a question that I haven't, maybe it's a question I've heard before, but not in that way. And I haven't thought about the answer in that way. So it's kind of the same with the books.
Yeah.
Except the books are then kind of set in stone and live for all eternity. So you have to be a little more careful with the details.
Yeah.
And we make mistakes, and as we try and correct them as quickly as we can. And my wife does all the design, and she's like a world-class copyist as well.
Oh, cool.
Orchestral in the studio, and copyist, like really does huge things, an orchestrator. So she does all the design, all the layouts, and makes it happen. We have like an in-house production crew here.
Nice.
But we always proofread it 12 times, and there's always like, oh, one fingering in the tab is wrong on page 97. Or so, you know, it's a crazy process, man. I don't know how people who only do that full time live with the process.
Yeah.
If that was the only thing I did, it would drive me absolutely nuts, you know.
Yeah.
As it is, it's like a 6-month process from start to finish, minimum, to get one done.
Sure.
And
sure.
the new one is like a scales compendium. Like it's everything. It's every scale that's out there, how to play it and where to play it, and then hundreds of exercises based around that to get it fluent into your playing. So it's been an insane amount of work, and this is our sort of final week of production now before it comes out.
How many pages is this book?
I don't know yet because it's 250 something exercises. But here's another classic example. I got feedback before. Don't put it in all 12 keys because we can do that. We'd like more variation in exercises. Put them all in one key. We'll do the work on the back end. Nobody does. They're totally bullshitting you. They will absolutely not play them in all 12 keys. But okay, if that's what they want, that's what they want. That's what I do. It means I can be more creative, put more information in there. They won't do the work though, guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. But that's what people want. I'm seeing a bunch of things pop up on the side here.
Yeah, I was
specific to notation.
yeah.
Let's see. Question about notation. So a transcription you did, and if I didn't totally misunderstand it, you used the bass clef without writing it down and below. Okay, this question maybe doesn't make so much sense. First of all, I can tell you I use the treble clef almost all of the time if I'm transcribing music that is in the range of the treble clef. I think it's pointless to write 8 VE above or do tons of ledger lines. I'm not a fan of that. I also read treble clef great from my days as a classical musician. The process is
he clarifies here. He means without writing it down an octave below.
Oh yeah, without writing it down an octave below.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about the music side of things. It's not about the bass guitar magazine or bass player magazine way of writing stuff out to make it super easy for weekend warriors. You know, nothing against weekend warriors or people who don't learn music or people who don't have music as the main focus of their life. But in that process, for me to learn the fastest and the best, it has to be really like hit the center of the target in terms of what makes sense musically. And that involves some other skill sets like reading and writing in treble clef, like being able to notate and understand rhythm in general, and to be able to translate that to the page. And the reason I write it down, it's probably the question I get asked the most about transcription. Do you write it down? Do you not? Yeah, because my memory is shit.
Yeah.
And there's some things I transcribed 20 years ago that I want to be able to go back in the book and go, holy shit, Freddie Hubbard on Wayne Shorter's Fee Fi Fo Fum. That's awesome. Let me get re-inspired by that thing.
Yeah.
If I just learned it from the record by ear, which is what I'm doing anyway, but hadn't notated it, that might never come back into my life. And
I mean, that was no one from Berkeley and Musicians Institute. That was a huge part of the curriculum, was transcribing, physically writing down solos as you learn them.
I mean, I don't know. I was such a horrific student. I didn't go to class. I took the midterm.
You were too busy gigging.
I was. No, 100%. I went for the visa. When Flora said go to America, I looked it up and I was like, oh shit, I can't just go to America. It's not legal, first of all. I need to be enrolled in school to have an F1 visa, which I did. And I would go to the midterm and the final, but not any of the classes. I have good friends now that swear to me we were in the same Harmony 3 class or something. It's like, I have no recollection of it. Because I went to the midterm and the final, and the rest of the time I was kind of on the road. I took almost exclusively ensembles and then subbed them out to other bass players, found teachers who were really cool. I remember Casey Sherrill, who was a great studio musician in LA back in the day.
Yep.
I remember going to Casey and saying, hey, he's like, yeah, no problem, go on.
Yeah.
Just making a little under the table deal, and some other bass player who wouldn't have gotten in the class managed to get in the class, and it was fine, So, but a very different time back then.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, that's a whole rabbit hole we could get into about music education and about why people even go anymore. And it's very, very interesting to me where that has gone now. It was already the monetization of music. Like, that was music school in a big way. I think unless you were taking a really specialist subject, like maybe they called it MP&E, music production and engineering, where you needed access to a console and to tape machines and Pro Tools and real expertise, stuff you couldn't just get from jamming along to records like you can as a musician. I think there was probably huge value in that. A class for doing your taxes as a musician, huge value. But when it came to the music, right now it feels like very, very different.
Yeah.
The music is such an afterthought. There are social media classes and there's like DJ classes. And I don't want to shit on DJs because I know some amazing DJs, but trust me, if you're going to Berkeley to be a DJ, oh my God. You are going because you don't know what to do,
I mean, for the most part, there is the networking aspect of it too.
100%. Most important thing, I think, of any music school.
Yeah. And in that case, like you said, your story with Casey, he probably realized he probably doesn't need my class.
For sure. I told him that.
Let him go do his thing.
Another dick move on my part, but
no, that's.
You can say that all you want, but you're also outlining the fact that, and this took me a really long time to learn, like there's no rules and there's just pathways, and you just created pathways for yourself.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
I just think that maybe it's crazy. Like, social media was meant to be the liberation of artists, and like you can do your own thing, and there are no gatekeepers, no barriers anymore. But it actually feels like there are so many more boxes you have to check in order to make that work for you, that it's more complicated than it was when there were just gatekeepers and record deals and tours and stuff that you could kind of, like you said, make your own pathway and get to in a way more analog sense and based on merit. It used to be a meritocracy. It didn't run on a currency of attention, which is what it seems to run on now. It's like, did your video get 30,000 views? Did it get 2 million? Like, how many likes, how many followers, how many subscribers do you have? I don't know, So that's awesome.
That's a whole nother aspect of your career too, of all of our careers that we have to keep track of now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I gave it up. That's why I ditched all my social media. I haven't had Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or any of that stuff for years now.
It's strictly YouTube, your YouTube channel.
Yeah, YouTube, because I can put out long form content that I choose, It's algorithmically based, unfortunately, in terms of the audience, but it's way less stress and vitriol and crap than some of those others,
So
go on.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was listening to an interview this morning. Alex Honnold, I don't know if you saw the movie Free Solo. He's a climber who soloed El Capitan. Yeah, it's 3,000 foot wall. He climbed it without a rope. And in the interview, like the guy was asking him all these crazy questions about like, oh, the size and speed and all these crazy dimensions. And he's like, so actually, man, I got to ask you, are you in the Guinness Book of Records for something you've done? And he's like, I don't know. And the producer came in like 5 minutes later and he said, yeah, actually, you're in it 3 times. And the guy didn't even know.
Wow.
You know, and that's, I love that. It's such an analog way of being. And you're in like one of the biggest publications for doing one of the most insane human feats in the history of humankind. You didn't know about it. And more importantly, didn't fucking care about it.
Didn't care. Yeah.
So all the forums and the social media and all of the noise, I choose to not care about, you know. And some friends who I have to question how much of a friend they are send me links once. Hey man, you know, so and so said such and such about you. And I'm like, I don't care, man. Like they send me links to Instagram. I don't even have the app in my phone to open it. You know, it's like I just delete. It's a much, for me anyway. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people, like my buddy Ian Martin Allison, the great bass player, uses that side of his world to great effect, and it's a very happy, outgoing, you know, social, personable, cool guy, and has a great relationship with the audience, and it really works with some people. So I'm not saying what I'm doing is the only way,
but it's a ton of work. It's a ton of work. Like what Ian does, I know that's a ton of work. What any of us do is a ton of work. But you know, if you focus on the one thing, and like you say, focus on what you want to focus on, and cut out all the other noise.
And for me, I'm lucky that I have the option, especially with the books. That's actually a living, you know, that's a career into itself.
Nice.
And it allows me to have this sort of happy-go-lucky attitude of like, well, maybe somebody will listen to this music that I wrote and recorded. Maybe it'll be 300 years before they do. You know, I'm not about to put myself on the same level as Picasso, but it fucking took that guy a long time to make any money that he never saw.
Right.
And there's no estate for it to go down to 300 years later. Nobody saw any money. So it was the most honest thing he could possibly have done and be known for. I'd much prefer to be known for that, you know, than being the guy who made the same record 20 times and then was forgotten about for all eternity.
There's a lot to be said for that, and it's commendable, and it's inspirational. It really is.
I want to believe that true artist type is going to come back around to being revered and thinking, you know, everyone's fearing AI and what it's going to do to music, but I hope it just props up human-made music even more, you know?
Yeah, I think I'm lucky in the music I make. There's no fucking way. Like AI can't, it can't do it. You can't. It won't happen. I'm scared for people. Like somebody played me this. It was like they made a prompt. It was like write a blues from Louisiana from 1950 in the style of John Lee Hooker, and I was like, shit. I might not know that's John Lee Hooker, not John Lee Hooker, if I listen to it cold. I was like, that's scary.
Yeah.
But there is something about the things that are sort of mass appeal or mass recognition. Like, write a thing in the style of Taylor Swift. Everyone is not going to give a shit. But all of those people don't give a shit about improvised music already. So my billions of audience members don't exist. So I've got the small corner of the market that I have, and those people are going to be able to tell right away when they're being bullshitted. And I'm not on some kind of crusade or campaign to highlight that or anything. It's interesting to be a passenger and sort of watch it all going on around. Be like, okay, cool. Yep. Don't need that. You know, quite happy here. And be surrounded by the right people as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people ask about, hey, what do you need to do, this, that, and the other, like career advice. I'm like, surround yourself with the right people. That's never been more important, I don't think.
Yeah.
You know, find that small group of people that you trust. I have that musically speaking. I have that personally speaking, actually both of those things together with the people I work with my own music, which I cannot tell you how, it's really hard to describe how great it is when you walk into the studio and you just look around. It's like, right, yes, absolutely, fucking 100%. And you look at every person in the room and say, oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
You know? And
it's going to be fun.
And you can trust them that if it's not great, you're all going to know that it's not great, and you will hit Shift Apple Delete and you'll go home, and that will also be totally okay.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much it costs, how much you put into it. You know, when you find people who are working on the same wavelength that have the same not even the same, but or at least the same level of expectations from themselves,
Yeah.
then you create that group thing, which is kind of invincible.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's
Man.
really, it's cool, man.
Yeah. Like I said, it's inspiring.
It doesn't get boring, which is the best part. You know? I always
No,
said as soon as it got boring, as soon as I didn't like it, I'd just go and do something else, you know.
yeah.
But my to-do list is too long. I need 5 lifetimes just to get through it, you know, of all the things I want to do, and the people I'm still not even, that I don't even have the balls to call them up, you know, like there's still a lot of people on that list that I'd love to work with and write with, or, you know, do something with. And that's a kind of a long list. That's going to take me the next 20 years to get through. Never mind the people I know and love and have been friends for 2 decades that we're still working together.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it never gets old.
But you had the balls to go knock on somebody's stage door and say, "I want to play with you tonight."
Hey, man,
That's right.
I was 18. Big difference. I gotta say, it was 27 years ago.
Okay, fair enough.
Not that I don't have that now.
No, I know.
I think I just,
Who are some of the artists that you would like to work with?
they're mostly dead, unfortunately. But but now living, I don't know. There are some like unobtainium level artists, you know, like
Yeah.
obviously Herbie Hancock would be fantastic, but he's like 83 and he's like doing his own thing.
Yeah.
It's like the glory years of huge gigs, and I don't think he really does anything else except his own band. And I got to tour opening for him in 2001, which was amazing. So I actually got to spend a lot of time with him and talk about music. And although we never got to play together, I learned a lot from him. So
Yeah.
that's one that I'm not so upset that we never actually got to play together, because we hung a bunch in Europe. And I don't know, I'd love to work with Brad Mehldau. I love Brad.
Okay.
There are some people kind of in my age range as well. There's a great tenor player called Ben Wendell, who had a band called Kneebody for a long time. Ridiculous tenor player. Chris Potter, a lot of jazz guys. But then there are a lot of pop singers as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, unfortunately Sting's a bass player. That never helps, you know.
Well, he's had bass players in his band, though.
Yeah, but he's downsizing now. He's playing as a trio, which sounded kind of awesome, I got to say. Him and Dominic and this drummer from, what was the band? Mumford and Sons? Some drummer from the UK. Sounded great. They just played in Hyde Park. I saw a video, message in a bottle. I was like, well, that's an upgrade from the last band they had.
Nice.
But a bunch of people like that. Unfortunately, like, you know, Prince and a bunch of people like that. Jeff Beck was like my absolute top of the line wish list, bucket list guy. I would have loved to have played with him. Met Tony Hymas, who was his keyboard player forever out in the UK, and talked a lot about doing something, but obviously that never happened. I try, to be honest, I try not to think about it too much. Because there's already enough shit going on, and if any of those things come up, it's like not something I sit here like, how do I pursue Brad Meldau? Like, how do I track him down? You know, let's send him a DM. I don't even have DMs anymore. You know, I doubt he does either. Yeah, there are a lot of people like that I think Brad doesn't have anything to do with social media. I think a lot of the people I want to work with think similarly in that way. There's what is the I'm going to forget his name. Ambleside Days was the record, if anyone wants to check out this music. Ambleside Days. Now I should really be... Ambleside Days was with... John Sermon. There you go. Unbelievable. It's so obscure and random, though. It's not like, oh my God, I want to work with Kelly Clarkson or Avril Lavigne or so. You know, like maybe I don't know, but probably not. You know, there's like a lot of obscure people. There's a rapper from the UK called Roots Maneuver who is ridiculous. The soundtrack of my youth in the 90s. You know, like
wow.
And he's still around. He's still going, and he's in his 50s, and it's like not inconceivable that we could possibly hook it up, you know, dude is alive, dude is still awesome, he's making great music, and we're not in the worst, like we're not like country and grindcore, we're not that far apart, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, and there are like in the ambient world, electronic music world, just this is the best way to put it. Most of the people I want to work with the rest of my life, I've never fucking heard of. I can guarantee you. I've never heard of, and I'm going to find out about them when I find out about them, and it's going to be amazing.
There you go.
You know, like I can aspire to have worked with Jeff Beck and Prince and all those people, but
Yeah.
those are very known entities and now not possible. I
Yeah.
think the best way, for me anyway, is to think, oh, when I get to Bulgaria and I get into that women's folk choir, there's going to be probably the whole choir, but there's also probably going to be someone who's like, oh shit, did you hear that? Let's bring her and do like 5 songs over here or whatever. I know it's going to be something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Let me ask you, are you or were you ever a big Zappa fan?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Of
All right.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Just the music my dad played when I was a kid. My dad was a piano player and
Okay.
was into Zappa and Return to Forever and Miles and Bitches
Yeah.
Brew and like all the 70s stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, Zappa. And it's not, and then come to find out, like all the people that were on it, eventually, they weren't all the weird, obscure people that you've kind of never heard of that didn't have solo careers. There was all of those, dozens of them. But then it's like the Brecker brothers and Vinnie Colaiuta and Chad Wackerman and all these people that I, end up playing with and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing to get into that position. Like,
Yeah.
it's still like when I talked earlier on about the touring thing and having to make choices about who I go out with and why I go out with them. One of the gigs that I had to do this year was one gig, 72 hours of travel time because it was in the middle of the desert in Morocco. And it was with Randy Brecker playing the music of the Brecker brothers with Barry Finnerty, the original guitar player. I was like, shit, man, Randy's 79. Like, I don't want to be morbid, but this might be one of the last times I get to work with him. There's no way I'm saying no to this.
Yeah.
Like 72 hours of travel for 59 minutes of music.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it paid okay. And of course, the music is the why I moved to America.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were 2 concerts, Brecker Brothers live in Barcelona, 1992, and Steps Ahead live in Japan, 1986. And every single one of those musicians on both of those live things, I either know or worked with.
Yep.
Steve Smith was the drummer on the Steps Ahead. Dennis Chambers was the drummer on the Brecker Brothers. I played with Mike Stern for years, with George Whitty, with Randy since 2000, I think, almost 25 years. Like Mike Manieri, he was the last one. Mike Manieri, the vibes player in Steps Ahead, he played on the last Vital Information record, and that was the last guy on both of those albums that I hadn't played with.
Okay.
It was a real moment.
Wow.
So when I think back to that, it's like childhood dreams coming
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And I'm in my mid-40s, I'm middle-aged, and there are childhood dreams still coming true. And it reminds me why I'm here. You know, like, it's really motivating. It's why I just moved in here, so I don't really have that many posters around, but it's why I put those things on my wall. It's not an ego trip. It's like I walk in here and think, oh, fuck, man, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And how the hell was I a part of it? Like I think of that all the time. I look back here on this Jojo Mayer Nerve posters and I was like, how the fuck did we meet? How did we tour the world together? How are we still best friends 25 years later? Like, I don't take any of it for granted.
Yeah.
Which I hope I never lose sight of that. You know, and I hope that's something I teach my daughter, and I hope that's something I can, transfer to anyone who cares to listen or watch or read, anything I do,
Yeah.
It's always the motivator.
No, that's like I said, man, it's always an inspiration just talking with you and getting your insight on performances, on music, on being a listener versus being, going back to the beginning of this conversation where, sometimes you gotta put all that shit aside.
Right.
Whether you're, impress me, I need to impress, it's all about, I want to hear some good music. Well, that's good, because I want to play some good music. So we're in the right spot tonight, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and there's no, I paid $300 for this seat, and I want a clear shot of it just,
luckily nobody's paying $300 to see me. Nobody's paying $300 over the course of 3 years to see me. So I don't run into that so much. Well, and also I think it's important to point out that I'm 45. I'm not 25. I'm also not 75. And when people listen to what it is I have to say or conversations we have like this, it's important to point out in some senses how outdated a lot of the things are that I'm saying. I think it's really important to be transparent about that, because as inspirational as it might be to some people, and as inspired as I have been by some of those things, it is a different world now.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to listen to everyone and ask yourself so many simple but highly important questions that you have to be very honest with the answers to.
Yeah.
And if you can ask those simple questions, for me in the beginning, it was like, I saw Lawrence, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Go home Sunday afternoon, like, fuck, I really want to do this. Do you have the balls to do it? Yeah, I do. Monday morning, go out and get the bass. So less than 24 hours expired before I had my first bass after hearing Lawrence Cottle.
Wow. It's cool.
And that's quick. That's really insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my story. But I think everyone has those questions, you know, and everyone has their own slightly different angled trajectory that they need to be aware of, rather than just reading or listening or scrolling to what looks great or what seems great. You know, what's the next fancy thing? Who's got the crazy pedal board? Yeah, I do. 45. I'm not 20.
Yeah.
Whoop-de fucking do. That's not important, even though that's a massive part of my online persona, for want of a better word, or my channel. It's really so not important. And I find a lot of people asking questions about just the gear or just the pedals or just the bass or just these things. Just widen it a little bit and know that I am a very small fiber in that much larger thread of what it is to ask great questions and give yourself honest answers.
Yeah.
I think that's it is that classic interview question, right? If you had a superpower, what would your superpower be, right? That's my superpower.
Yeah.
Is asking questions, answering them honestly, and not being afraid by the answer.
Yeah.
You know, being able to accept the answer, because sometimes the answer is, as we all know, is not what you want to fucking hear.
That's very much so. No, it is. That is a very tough thing for people to accept, and
especially in music.
Yep.
It's a subjective art form, and it's really crowded, you know?
I mean, Dom and I are in, you know, obviously we're in the business of building amplifiers and making great stuff for people, but, you know, and this might come as a surprise to a lot of people, like, you know, how many times do I answer an email, hey, what's the input impedance on a V7, or what's this, or like and I'm like, first of all, I don't know. Like I would have to call 3 people to find out what that answer is. But in the grand scheme of things, and again, I come from an educational background a little bit too, and it's like, that is such a small thing.
Right.
Like if you're a bass player, if you're a musician, if you're really about creating, that I know it's information that you want to get, and you know, you do with the information what you want, but in the grand scheme of things, that is such a small thing to worry about. Like, worry about the notes that are coming from your hands, or worry about the notes that are in a C major scale. You know,
try not to worry about them, but absolutely you should know them.
Exactly. But you know, it's just like, we as Ampeg guys, we get so hung up in behind the gear at times, and Dom and I talk about this all the time in our personal conversations. We, you know, what his gig is, what my gig is, in terms of outside of Ampeg. Just hey man, I had a great gig this weekend with this guitar. It was fantastic. But yeah, it's just, and I encourage anybody, like, as much as we love, you know, people that love Ampeg amps, and there's a brand, and they love the brand, they love the equipment, they love this. It's all about just playing music. And you know, just getting out from behind the amp and just play the music, play the notes, inspire yourself. And if we can build something that's going to inspire you to play a little bit more, or to get a sound out of your head, then okay, we're doing it right. But
totally.
You know, I know, and coming, you know, I know, I would assume a lot of times when, you know, you have sounds through when you're creating or playing music or writing something, you know, your pedals are basically tools that are helping you. I've got this sound in my head and I can't get it from just a bass and an amplifier. I need, there's a sound there that I know is going to work with this particular piece.
It's another instrument. And it's interesting that I'm not sure a lot of people give it enough time a day in terms of the practice that goes into it. To understand the workings of a lot of pedals and how to get those sounds out of your head. But also, and this is something I learned the hard way. I ate shit so many times. Like at home, I had this perfect sound dialed in and blah, blah, blah. And I get to the room, the sound doesn't work.
Yeah.
But that's true for pedals. That's true for amps. That's true for the bass. You know, that's true for everything we do, especially as an electric amplified instrument, you know, and the tens of thousands of different kinds of rooms we end up in, you know. And a lot of people don't, even just the physical process of hitting the right button at the right time in the song. People don't practice a set often with the patch changes. If you have more effects for, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And so that was interesting for me to learn that the hard way a couple of times. Like, oh, eat shit, go home. Really practice with the pedals, but also something to be aware of. You know, like. Took me forever. The question we had earlier on about 12s versus 10s and just anything versus anything.
Yeah.
Goes to what you were talking about, Dino, is like, it was probably not that first. It's like this thing first. And, you know, I had a question. I did a Q&A on my podcast this past week and someone was asking me like, oh, so how much do you EQ and how do you run your preamp and all this stuff? I said, like someone just died. That's how I run my EQ. Flat as a pancake.
Yeah.
You know, there's no bing, nothing. And everything comes from the fingers. And then 1 in 25, 30 times, there's something in the room. You're like, God damn, that frequency sucks. And you just go, doot, or on the preamp, on the bass, real subtle. But people who are like, you know, like they're mixing a Megadeth record or something. Like, no. You're starting in the wrong place. So I always try and promote that first, like the fingers first. And someone was just putting a comment in there saying, I don't really care about his pedals, but they like my dry tone, my clean tone. Great. That's an unbelievable compliment that you can give to anyone, is if you show up with nothing and somebody still likes to listen to the way you play. Awesome. It means you spent some time with the instrument. And I think I am in the last 5 or 6 years, I'm way more crazy about my dry sound, my clean sound than ever before. How I'm EQing it. I did that massive DI shootout video recently. I'm now carrying a DI on the board for the first time ever. It changes. I did a deal with this company and actually sold some DIs through my website. I mean, I went all in, as I kind of do with everything that I do. And amazing, passive, active, preamps, no preamps, like just.
That was a great shootout, by the way.
It was fun. And I didn't get to half the ones I wanted to. Didn't get to the Neve, didn't get to the what's the Ampeg one, the old one, the Clan or
the SVT DI?
On DI.
No, the Clan, the old one, right? It was the same designer as the Ampeg guy. Is there some Ampeg connection, right?
Oh, the Khan.
The Khan, the Khan, exactly. Will Lee uses one of those. There were so many I didn't get to that I wanted to. You know, I did 30 or something crazy, some number, but I got crazy into it. And I would love to do one with compressors, for instance, and it's never ending. I'm gonna do my little Line 6 journey.
Oh, yeah, that's right too.
I was showing Dino this beforehand. I can
look at this thing.
Look at this.
Wow.
Original DL4.
Nice.
It's like the casing is cracked. Somebody got on stage and fell on it. You know,
that thing's been through war.
Looking ones I've seen.
The knobs, I need a hammer to turn them because they've had so many beers spilt in them.
That is funny.
And then so I have the new one here, and then the HX1 is on the board, so I can't hold that up next to this. But of course, I started life in that world with the M5 and the M9 and the M13. So kind of, this is dirty as hell. Where's the tone brush? Tone brush. There we go. Nice.
I have the same brush.
Oh, terrible. But so that side, it does excite me as much as I'm always like, it's not the gear, you know, it's you. That side does really excite me, and it makes so many more things possible. I'm going to Guitar Summit. Anyone who's in Europe, next week I'm going to Guitar Summit to give a clinic for Line 6 / Ampeg / Yamaha, the whole company, and be there on Saturday, the 28th of September in Mannheim, Germany. I'll have all of this stuff with me. I'll be doing HX Stomp, HX1 shootouts and talking about it, and actually talking about anything anyone wants to. So if you're around, come and say hi. I always love that.
And all your other dates, people can find you on your website or your YouTube channel.
The website, tour schedule, pretty classic. That very 1997 list of dates, you know. I don't think people look at websites anymore. I
I
get
do.
so many dumb questions.
I know,
Like if you can Google this, don't send me an email. You know, it's
Yeah,
like right there on the internet. Your answer is within 0.0003 seconds from Google. For me, it might be 30 days. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've got dates coming up in LA with Larry Goldings and Clarence Penn. I've got stuff at the Big Potato. I'm out with.
Cool. I'll have to check
there
it
you
out.
go. Are you in LA, Dom?
Yeah,
Are you in Calabasas?
I'm in Encino.
Oh, Encino. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, dude, anytime.
Yeah.
Tell me. Whenever I'm at the Spud or playing in LA, I'm also going to be with Mike Stern and Dennis Chambers in December.
Awesome.
We're playing 2 nights in LA, so by all means, come out, hit me up,
definitely
and
come out.
yeah.
And I'll check and see if you're here on the East Coast at any time too.
East Coast will be in the spring,
Okay.
and we're actually going to play Boston. Is the plan next year with Steve Smith, Violin Formation.
Oh, okay.
We
All
never
right.
make it up there. Berkeley's always closed when Steve wants to tour. It's like the wrong, but he's going to do it this time.
Yeah.
He'll do Regatta Bar or Scholars or something. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a new place in New Hampshire too. Jimmy's
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
very nice room actually too. Yeah.
And then there's
So-
more tour dates. I'm doing a thing with Bill Evans and Dave Weckl next
Cool.
early summer, and yeah, it's just already booked into June of next year.
Cool.
Plus
Cool.
all the recording all over the world. Yeah, it's gonna probably can't make Mannheim, even though I'm in Germany. Oh no, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
So close.
I saw that pop up too. Man, and all that, and keeping busy with a young daughter, and
Yeah.
being a dad and a husband, and
Yeah.
if there's any advice I can give, being a father of a 28-year-old and a 21-year-old, and spending my life on the road when they were babies,
Yeah.
is I had an amazing support system at home.
Yeah. My
That-
wife is incredible.
You know,
Yeah.
and my kids were like, so, you know, now that they're grown, they're you know, that my dad's a rock star. It's like, no, your dad was just out working, trying to put food on the table, is basically what it comes down to.
And it's
So-
crazy for her to have parents that are both musicians as well, both bass players.
Both bass players, man. That's like, do you guys like fight over amps and guitars and stuff? And like,
Okay. I would like to open the side of the garage and just push about 7,000 pounds of gear down the hill. There's so much stuff here. I mean, you know, I have all my Ampeg stuff here. She has the company she plays with, but also she brought along to our relationship, our marriage, all the stuff she had since she was a kid. So there's like old Eden combos that I didn't even know existed.
oh my,
TC electronic practice amp. There's a Behringer thing, and there's so much crap in the garage. So we have more than enough amps. She's also a music producer for Disney. So she's a writer, arranger, composer, orchestrator, musical director for Disney parks worldwide. So that's like a full-time thing.
sure.
And right now, on top of that, she's doing this Sarah Bareilles production of Waitress, this Broadway show, which is one rig on stage, one rig off stage, one rig with electric and upright, one rig with just electric. I programmed her. She's got one of my HX Stomp XLs. I programmed her presets for the show. So in that sense, we share everything. She's got,
Of course.
two of my basses on the gig, you know.
That's awesome.
And plus, she plays upright. So there are 2 freaking uprights in the house, which, as you know, take
Wow.
up so much space.
Oh yeah.
You know, I just sold like 8 or 9 basses last year to make room. And yeah, it's needless to say, our daughter is going to have the run of some insane gear
Yeah, right.
that she will inevitably be like, oh my God, I don't want to be a musician.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a bit.
Let
Yeah,
alone a bass player.
that is amazing. Wow.
Love it.
Wow. Well, I know we went way over time. We knew we were going to do this
Okay.
though, because it's, you know, well, no, it's I always say we try and keep it to an hour, but
It's all good.
if the conversation is going and people
Absolutely.
are interested, you know, we talk.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Quite happy
Man.
to, man. Cool.
Yannick, I cannot thank you enough for your
Yeah,
time
man.
on this. I
My
know you're
pleasure.
after talking to you for the last hour and a half, I just realized just how incredibly busy you are and how incredibly busy you keep yourself. So,
I try.
but it is again, it's always inspiring to talk to you, because you definitely give, at least myself, and I can speak for myself, I hope I can speak for people that have been listening, that you totally give me an inspiring view of the instrument, and kind of bring me
Cool.
back to my roots of why I picked up the bass in the first place, because it was freaking fun to play
100%.
and I could make stuff with it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
yeah,
Anytime, guys. Great to see
I
you.
appreciate that.
Happy to hang.
Oh, let me just kill this. I do have one quick 10-question thing
Okay.
that I got to ask you.
Okay.
And it is kind of gear related. It's
Go ahead.
fun.
Let's do
All
it.
right. So this is my 10 rapid fire.
Okay. Pressure now. Shit now.
And they're pretty general, but first question, P bass or jazz bass?
P bass.
Okay.
But that's so hard. I mean, it's
I know. You gotta give it the first your first what
yeah,
comes
I
to
had
mind
to.
first.
Like, yeah.
Passive or active?
Ironically, passive.
Okay.
Yeah. They hit pedals better.
Rounds or flats?
Oh. So you're making me just dive down two different paths. I see my career going there, and like actually making money as a musician going there. So
I know.
Then I gotta be super honest and go rounds, I guess.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah, there's no wrong answers.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no wrong answers. B15 or SVT?
B15 or SVT? B15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cable or wireless?
Cable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pick or fingers? I think I know the answer, or we know the answer.
It's impossible, and I'm not known for the one you think I'm not going to pick.
I know.
No pun intended, but just no substitute for either. Like when you need it. Of course, I'm going to go with fingers because that's what I do.
Yep.
But holy shit, like literally, that's got 100 picks in it, right?
Yeah.
There. It's like right in my desk every day.
You know, that's exactly. IEMs or floor wedges?
Ooh. That all depends who's mixing.
Yeah.
and how many drivers you have in the in-ears. There are too many variables to risk it being in-ears. I'll have to go with monitors.
Okay.
Floor
all right.
wedges.
That's a good that's a very good perspective there.
Yeah.
Even though I'm literally sitting here with a set of in-ears in, and I've used them my entire career. Too many variables. Unless you're like, I was on tour opening for Maroon 5, then okay, great. We're playing arenas and I've got a dedicated monitor guy by the side of the stage. And I was using like 13 drivers or something in there.
Yeah.
Plus I was the musical director, so I had backing tracks to monitor and all that shit. There was
gosh.
no way I was doing that on wedges.
We should quantify that question with a bad in-ear mix is worse than a bad monitor mix.
Absolutely.
True or false?
And also I see too many people now. It's like the modern thing talking while the band is playing, like musical directors like 1, 2, 3, bridge. Fuck that. That is such weak bullshit.
Isn't that? Yeah.
I see that in people's little videos. Like, that's a big thing. I think in church gigs, they do that a lot. Maybe it's because they have people that are really new to the gig that they're giving, but I hear it
wedding
way
bands
too much. Wedding bands as well.
Yeah.
When you're queuing,
Yeah,
anyway.
I have the MD screaming in my ear all the time.
I hate that. Like, go away, man.
We're going to the bridge. We're going to the bridge. We're going. It's like just
good for you. I've played this song before. I know exactly.
I'll see you there.
To the bridge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Pedals or no pedals?
Oh wow, pedals.
Of course. Window or aisle?
Oh,
taking a left turn here.
Yeah, but this is great because travel is my entire life, and if I wasn't a musician, I'd be a tour manager and an absolute travel guru, and you would never use anyone else. You would fly business everywhere you went, and you'd have the most pleasant time because I do, and I do that for myself. So it all depends.
Okay.
Number one, if you're flying up the pointy end, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I haven't flown coach in over a decade. That's not a flex. That is an absolute mission game that I play with, gamifying the mileage thing and just never flying coach, ever. If it's a short flight and I have a connection, aisle.
Yeah.
Even in first class in the US, because I want to be 2B and get off the plane first and make my connection.
Yeah.
If it's a long flight, window.
Yep.
Sorry, it's a long-winded answer.
No. It's and it is. It's all variables, Yeah. Tour bus, high bunk or low bunk?
High bunk.
Okay.
Sleep like a baby. If I'm being a
and then,
real dick, back lounge.
yeah, right. You just take up the whole back lounge.
Yeah.
And then last question: black with white piping or silver and blue when it comes to Ampeg Cosmetics?
Black with white pipe.
Do you like the vintage
Silver
look
and
or the
blue.
black and white look?
This is black with white piping. What I have.
Kinda, yeah. The
Kinda.
Venture is more black with piping.
I would go with that. I know what you mean with the blue and
Yeah.
yeah, that's more the vintage thing, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you did that in the reissues I saw.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think I like this.
Okay.
Yeah, the black
All
with
right.
white piping.
Yeah, we got to add vintage or venture modern in there in that question.
Yeah,
Oh, there
right.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do that.
I'll take what I have. I love this shit, man. And it's like, because it's really, to me, it's close. Like, whenever I see the badge, it's just, that says it all. You know, the stuff
Yeah.
that's around it, yeah, whatever, but the badge
Yep.
says it all. Sort of feel at home with that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, like I said, I know we got to get going here,
That
but
was good. That was a great way to end, man. I like that.
thank you. Yeah. No, thank you. Thanks.
Like
Thanks.
inside the actor's studio. What's your favorite curse word?
There is. Yeah, I won't get into it, but there are other base interview channels that have kind of.
Oh, they do that?
Yeah, you know
This
they
is how
say
much attention I pay. Jesus
imitation
Christ, I
is the
should
biggest form of flattery, sort of thing.
probably-
So, man,
Cool.
thank you, Dom. Thanks for being here. Aaron,
Yeah, man.
thank you for being in the back there, and Haji for answering the questions and everybody that chimes in. Like I say, we wouldn't do this if we didn't have people watching these videos. So I greatly appreciate all the regulars that chime in and some of the newcomers that chime in. By all means, I think next 2 weeks, so every 2 weeks we do this. So not next week, but the following week, we're going to have Pablo Stinnett, who is Ziggy Marley's bass player, reggae, dear friend of mine as well.
Nice.
He'll be coming on, and maybe we might talk about some good Jamaican food too. So,
Nice.
but yeah, like I said, everybody have a great day. Thank you for watching, and yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
See ya.
All right. And